Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Lasercast by Laserforce Loveland. Laserforce International's 2024, sponsored by Loveland Laser Tag and Liquid Death, are coming up. Some of the competitors have chosen to gather around and talk smack, talk gossip, talk the truth about the 8 teams competing in this year's Internationals. Without any further ado, let's get into it. Today I am joined by Odin's Fist from Sacramento, California, Sweets from Chula Vista, California, and Snuffles from Cedar City, Utah. Today's Power Ranking show was an idea created by Sweets. Sweets, would you like to kind of explain the concept to everyone?
Yeah, for sure. So today we're going to be ranking all 8 teams attending the upcoming 2024 International Tournament. Each of the 4 of us have privately ranked the teams 1 to 8, not just in tiers, without consulting one another. Luke, our host, is the only person who have seen all the list, and so he's compiled them into an overall ranking based on the average rank from our submitted list. So Dallin, Aiden, and I have no idea what each other's lists look like. The goal today is to have a discussion and a bit of a debate on our opinions of the teams, but we want to stress that the overall intent is to generate conversation and hype for the tournament. We're only stating our own opinions as long-term players, and we're certainly happy to be proven wrong by players or teams that we may undervalue. That being said, we will be honest about our opinions and hope to not hurt anyone's feelings. So go out and show us why we regret underestimating you.
Snuffles, Odin, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, that's great. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited. I'm going to do my best to give you all completely unbiased opinions, and let's see where it takes us.
I will probably most likely hurt people's feelings. So, just saying it now.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say I was even early on, I was hesitant to even participate in this. It takes, I think, some courage, especially when we know all the people playing in this tournament as friends, for us to come out and say, here's who we think's going to beat who. There's going to be a bottom half of everybody's list, right? For every person that you believe in, you have to note someone that you don't believe in at the same time. So I would overall just kind of remind everyone that, one, anybody can beat anybody. Just because we say something will happen doesn't mean it will happen. We're all prone to making poor judgments. And this is all in the nature of fun for the game to help people enjoy, build hype for the tournament. So, want to start off with a quick question. Just who is a player that you're excited to see play in NATS this year? Snuffles, you want to start with yours?
Yeah, of course. So I picked White Ninja from the Loveland B team. He is, I believe, he's a rookie, and I think this is his very first SM5 tournament. And the reason I picked him is I just think for how new he is, his skill level is just so good. Obviously, as a newbie, he has a lot of the basic fundamentals he's still a bit iffy on, but in terms of speed and quickness and being fast on the shot, he is so good. And so I'm just excited to see how much he improves from this tournament, both during and after.
I'm so excited about White Ninja, all the hype that he's kind of built, and we're very proud of him. He's only been playing for about a year, honestly. All the laser ball he did really elevated his game at a quick pace.
Yeah.
Odin, what about you?
The player I'm excited to see this year is Dill Pickle from the California team. I've played with him on a team before at Nationals in 2021. He played a very good scout there, and he was actually possibly my favorite player on that team. No shade to anyone else, but he was very willing to do things that the team needed him to do, even unglorious roles. And so I'm really excited to see how he steps up for his team this year and see what he's able to do.
I remember playing against you on that team in the finals. Well, not finals, but our second elim. Dill was such a menace, getting people in the back, really good at predicting where people were going to go, and he had a lot of success at West Coast 22, team that Sweets was on a couple of years ago. So yeah, I'm excited as well.
Hard to not mention his height in this arena too is just an insane advantage.
Yeah.
Height is pretty good. I'm also interested to see how well he shakes off the rest, because he has not been practicing this year. So I want to see how much of a disadvantage that puts him at, and how well he's able to push through
it. Sweets, why don't you go ahead and give yours?
My pick is Cedars or Sadie. I think I was really surprised when she wasn't elevated to the Cedar team when Tandor dropped. No shade against Metalface, he's super good too, but I think Sadie's super consistent. She has really high highs and almost never like really underperforms in games. And I think this tournament could be like a shine moment for her, where she kind of has a bunch of highlight plays, even though, spoiler alert, I don't expect her team to place very well. I think she has the potential to like outshine their ranking overall.
I agree. I actually, leading up to this tournament, I've had a lot of meetings with my team. I've talked with everyone on it about a lot of things, and Sadie's fundamentals are very good. She has a very good sense of how to play the game and what she's supposed to be doing in her roles, where I've taken clips of her playing from videos to say, like, these are the fundamental things that we need to be looking at improving on, especially with our scouts. Yeah, I think she performs very well, and it's cool because I remember playing in St. George when she was still very fresh to the scene, and seeing her play, and she was great at listening and picking things up and following directions, especially in the resupply, and then watching how her skill has developed to the point where it's at now, where she has a lot of those fundamentals down. It's developed from being able to listen and take in the information to now she just has that in her bank and is able to use those fundamentals and make the right call in a lot of situations. And it's a great skill for her.
Yeah. I'm going to jump in with mine here. I'm excited to see Evil, or sometimes Evil Hate on Me, from Syracuse, New York. Evil, from what I've done with as I've stalked every player, looked at their stats and all that, I don't think Evil's played a game at Loveland before. But if you look at his stats in his home site, he ranks as a top 3 commander and top 3 heavy among his own sites. So he and I've never told this to him, so I'm going to say it out in public. I've always really hated playing against him. If he wants a territory, he is really aggressive and persistent in pushing to get that territory. And he's very adaptive. He'll figure people out. So I have a lot of personal respect for his game. But there's always this thing where it's like Syracuse is a 1-floor arena, and then Loveland's a 3-floor arena, so you add this extra dimension. I'm just curious how he's going to come in and adapt his play style. I could see him playing a number of roles, and yeah, I don't want to get my butt kicked by him. He's good. Okay, let's go ahead and we're going to move on to the rankings. So we're going to start with number 8. Like Sweet said, we all gave our rankings in private. I took them and I basically created the average and then ranked them by that average. So we're going to start with our overall consensus number 8 team, and that's going to be the St. George Sunbeams. And then check this out. I have this thing where I can reveal what everyone individually ranked it. Sunbeams is captained by Rockwood, with El Diablo, Satyrs, Jack Rovio, Imathis, and Vulcan, fleshing out the roster. Total number of Laserforce missions on this team played is number 7 out of all 8 teams, 6,972, and 407 total SM5 missions have been played on this team, ranking number 7. And every single one of us ranked them as number 8. I would love to pass it to Snuffles first, as these are players that you're training up. Why Snuffles? Why do you condemn the Sunbeams so?
It was really close between them and my number 7. Originally, when Metalface was on this team, I did have them up higher than 8, but with him dropping, I did feel like I had to kind of bump them down a little bit. I think for me, it's just the lack of experience. they have 5 players who are coming in, and it's their first internationals ever. And then on top of that, for I think 3 of them, it's their first tournament ever. And so even though I think like Rockwood, El Diablo, and Satyrs are obviously all like good players and have improved quite a bit over the last couple of years, I feel like tournament is very different from just standard, member night play. They're gonna run into situations and stuff that's just gonna like confuse them and beat them up, and they're gonna have to figure out how to adapt to it. So.
Yeah, I agree on a lot of those points. I think there's kind of an effect that happens with a lot of B teams where they usually pick up a lot of fresh blood, and unfortunately, being fresh in the scene means that you end up performing below what your skill level might come across as, or what people might assume your skill level to be, just because tournaments are such a different environment and you have to learn and adapt to an entirely new atmosphere and kind of style of play. Because rather than your personal performance being able to adjust to different people on your team, you're working together as a unit. And I think we've seen a lot of examples where even people who have a lot of experience in tournaments still could be like top performing members night players at their home site and then just not perform very well in tournaments or in away fields. And there's just there's just way too many unknowns with a team like this where we have, Jacrovio, Imathis, and Vulcan coming in. It's going to be their first tournament ever. Rockwood, Satyrs, and El Diablo have experience in Loveland already, but they're still, a bit fresh. Rockwood and Satyrs having, played in that West Coast tournament that happened in Loveland, but no real NATS experience. And NATS really is like an elevated level of intensity. And so I think they're going to struggle with that a little bit. I think one of the defining things that might allow them to make those upsets and perform better is how well they're able to keep it together going into finals. I think a lot of people get very demoralized from performance in round play. But if they're able to take the opportunity to adapt and adjust to the way other teams are playing and read the field, and they can keep that up going into finals, I think they have the potential to perform a lot better.
I think building on that too is they don't have really experienced leaders on their team. Like their top level players are not typically the team leaders. So I think it'll be a lot on them to step up and help guide these new players to perform as a team and perform together, especially in a new arena for half of them. Contrary to what I said about Sadie earlier, I think the team itself is pretty inconsistent in games, even within a game itself. El Diablo and Rockwood especially, I think, are players that have some pretty high highs, but then also some really low lows. And so with the arena as punishing as Loveland, they need to really keep that in check, or else they could just like throw away games that they're ahead in. So that's why I'm ranking them 8, is I think the low lows could be a really big problem for these guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is when you look at the interviews that'll be coming out about these players, they're all pretty self-aware that like, hey, we have a lot of new players on our team. We're going to be taking some losses. We're here to grow. We're here to have fun, hang out with friends. So I can definitely see the situation happening that Odin described, where if they spend the first 3 days of the tournament with the steep competition, just having to take some hard losses, learning from those losses, observing during their games that they're reffing, and building on what they have, I think they have the pieces to take games off of people. And if you take games off of people in finals, guess what? You're not 8th place anymore. That's the time to take games off. Yeah, it's tough. Like you all said, the inexperience. I was looking, and between Jack Rovio, Imathis, and Vulcan, those 3 players have less than 400 total Laserforce games between the 3 of them. They're just newer players. They seem like they have motivation and talent. And I checked out, I've never met Jack Rovio before, but he seems like a pretty good commander player at the St. George site, from what I understand. So cool. And I'd love to pick your brain in a sec. Like, there's talent there. Plus, El Diablo, he played a pretty good tournament back in 22 West Coast. They ended up in that lower bracket, but he had a chance to learn the arena, be kind of a great support, communicatory scout. And Rockwood and Sadie, they've had a lot of experience. They've come out in the last few mega members nights, trademark. So what I'm wondering, like, on top of growing over the few days, the biggest plus I see for them is the Cedar City Sentinels being there on site, able to provide some of that mentorship that we were talking about. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on that, Snuffles. Like, you potentially help them throughout the tournament.
100%, and I think we're gonna have to, especially looking at the day one. If I remember correctly, I think the first two matches are against the Cali A team and then us right after that. So first two matches for them are going to be brutal. So I think if they can, have a good mental, then they can, understand, like, okay, we got beat up, but it's only day one. What really matters is just how much you improve into finals.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if we can kind of distill that within them, who knows? I think maybe they could upset some people. So
I think a hidden benefit on this team too is Rockwood. I think before he used to really struggle in this arena. I remember a game I was reffing and he hit in the box in front of me for 6 minutes while his team died, and it was just like really overwhelming. And then in the duos, he like absolutely popped off. Like, he was totally carrying quite a bit of games, and so he's someone who has learned from really struggling in this arena to like being really effective here. And so if he can kind of help his new players and with some of his like recent learnings to like step up in some of the areas they are struggling, potentially that he was struggling in as well, that'd be really beneficial.
I agree.
Yeah, that experience and game sense is especially important in an arena like Loveland, where it's so open and it's so punishing and so fast paced. You have to be able to really adapt to what's happening in the game. And so that's where I think like it's going to really fall onto Satyrs and El Diablo and Rockwood to kind of take charge and make sure that they're establishing the direction that the team is playing. I also think that they have kind of a benefit in that they're kind of like unmolded clay, they aren't really fully set in play styles the way that like some of these top tier, very experienced players are, where like you might say, X player has a tendency to like to push this way a lot really fast. So I know that that's coming. They don't have a lot of those tendencies just built into their playstyle. So there's a lot of room for them to make changes and take on new concepts as they're learning and absorbing information throughout the tournament, especially a tournament like NATS, where you get people from so many different places, so many different ideas and thoughts and playstyles coming into the same place. It's a really good way to like open your mind up and make those changes.
Yeah.
And touching back on Rockwood real quick, because we mentioned earlier that, he had really high highs, but really low lows. A big part of that is that there's really only two positions that he enjoys playing, those being Commander and Scout. The other three, whenever he plays them, he kind of goes into a bit of a doomer mode, like, oh, we're going to lose because I'm playing heavy. And so I think like with the tournament, he's going to be able to play those two positions. So, I'm really looking at Rockwood and in particular to really like step up. I think that's going to be important for them, is him stepping up and being more of a leader, along with, like you mentioned, Sadie and El Diablo.
Yeah. On the reverse of what I said before about players who play well at members nights and not at tournaments, there's players who are the reverse. I personally feel like I'm that way. I do a lot better in structured environments where I'm working with a team and we have established goals, rather than games where I'm having to adapt to my own team and figure things out. And so Rockwood definitely seems to thrive in more structured environments. So there's definitely a lot of potential for him to shine here, really show his stuff, show how well he's improved, and get a real sense of where he's at in the game, which I feel like is really one of the main points for these tournaments existing in the first place is seeing your own progress.
Yeah. So we got some great structure on this team, but I also think this team lives or dies by the progress that Jagrovio, Imathis, and Vulcan make over the 3 days. Having never played in this arena before, just being new to the tournament scene, I mean, we've all been on teams in the past when we were starting out where we were just getting our butts whooped over and over again. You have to adapt and learn every single day, every single game even. You're changing up a lot of your strategy. So I'm very curious how all three of them, to go back to our very first quick question, I want to see how all three of them play and what the difference is between day 1 and day 4. Who can step up, learn to perform their function well within our arena. Well, that's the question, right?
Yep.
We'll find that out, and that's why it's just a projection. But best of luck to the Sunbeams. You obviously have a lot of support here, especially from the Sentinels. I think just having kind of your mentor team there, sounds like they're willing to be there to help support you, answer questions, build strategies. Let's go ahead and move on to number 7. Number 7 is the Detroit Motor City Mutts, led by Wolfie and Disco Stew, little bit murking from Syracuse, New York, and then we have Phantom, Blackout, and Lizzie Lizard from Loveland, all murking on this team. So it is definitely a bit of a hybrid mercenary team. Rankings, we have all put them as number 7. I'm happy to start on this one. So this team, I am a huge personal fan of this team. And I've told them to their face, like, hey, you got 3 Lovelanders. If you want any help, I got strategies, I got ideas. I would love to see you guys do well. They have so much ceiling, in my opinion. Wolfie and Stu, world champions, each of them. Stu, a 2-time world champion. They have the foundational skills on this team, and then you're putting in all these pieces from different play styles, people that, even though Phantom is a Loveland player, she hasn't played with us for about 5 years. She hasn't played since 2021, but right now, to this day, she's the number 12 commander by MVP, and the number 1 heavy if you limit it to players with 3 or more games. She only has 3. So, Dallin, that's the only situation in which you're usurped. Small sample size. And Blackout Lucas is the only player here that, except for Lizzie Lizard, that's actively playing with us right now. And I've really been impressed by his growth as kind of an offensive, communicative player. He's very lethal, dangerously lethal even, sometimes to his own detriment. But the pieces are there to me to take games off of higher ranked teams and to place higher if the structure works out. But they do have a huge lack of prep time. They're all flying in without even playing together at all. Stu and Little Bit have never played in Loveland before, so that'll take some adjusting. And overall, I think the real reason they're down here is I just see them having to learn too many things at once in a short period of time for them to get where they could be if they lived here and were practicing together consistently.
Yeah, I have a lot to say on this team. I'll try and keep it realistic. I love this team. I love Wolfie. I've taken Wolfie onto my team on multiple occasions in the past. Great teammate, great player. Phantom has had excellent performances before and clearly knows the field. Stu, great player. And as you said, you have some Loveland local experience coming into this. I think definitely there's a lot of good power there, especially I feel like the team's really front loaded behind Wolfie and Phantom. Really what it comes down to is just the historical struggle of hybrid teams. Because we were talking before about the Sunbeams and how they're going to have to learn and grow and adapt and adjust to what the other teams are doing throughout this tournament. The struggle with a hybrid team is that your focus during round play has to be synchronizing with each other. You really got to be reading your own team. You got to be talking. You got to be making adjustments. And it can be rough when you're going in there and you're trying to focus on the other teams. You're trying to focus on beating them, but you don't have that cohesion down yet. And so that's going to be the primary struggle for them, is really finding that balance, and then also synchronizing at speed, because they don't have a lot of time to get it all down. They don't have a lot of time to really sync up with each other. So the sooner they can do that, the sooner they can get their own team's game flow rolling. The sooner they can start worrying about other teams, the sooner they can start making changes and making those adjustments that you need going into finals in order to have those big wins that elevate you.
That being said, though, having 3 home site players, they're going to adapt to the arena immediately. Yeah, so when other teams are trying to figure their stuff out early, I think this team has like quite a big advantage early in the tournament, early in round play, to get some upset wins in there while other teams are trying to figure their stuff out, especially if they're unfamiliar with the arena. These guys could just solo carry a game. I was really impressed by Blackout in the members night. They really try hard on the communications. They're fast. They're really passionate about the game, and they put up some high scores. So I was not expecting that going to the mega members, and that was really cool. And then something that I'm going to contrast this team and why I put them on 7 over 8 is Rhea, or sorry, Wolfie. She is a leader. Like when I'm talking about the 8th place team that they're going to have to step up in leaders, Rhea will step up immediately. They will lead the team and get their stuff figured out much faster than a team that doesn't have someone like Rhea on it. So I think her leadership is vital to this team performing.
Yeah,
Rhea isn't afraid of anything.
I think that their top end on this team is just a lot more secure. I think that between the Loveland arena experience, between their Loveland players, and between their top end, really having a lot of NATS experience and understanding how to take on tournaments, I really think that's what sets them apart from the Sunbeams.
Personally, I struggled with this team and where to put them because I'm really only familiar with about half the players. But I do think Wolfie and Disco Stew, like you said, are both, really good. Wolfie at basically any position is high up there, and I think Disco Stew is a really good resupply in terms of communication and that. I think one thing that concerns me a bit for this team is the mentality of Blackout. I don't know him personally too well, but he, like a lot of Lovelanders, which we'll talk about later, he gets upset quite quickly. And so, if they kind of have a string of just losing game after game, I worry about his mentality and if he's going to, be able to stay calm and in the game.
Lovelanders, we are a passionate bunch. I'll give you that. It's definitely been a downfall of us as a side in the past, and Lucas is no exception. Now, on some level, we've maybe not always been the best influence, but I will reveal, for what it's worth, one of our strategies for practice right now. We have been learning to be zen. It's been tough, but we have really tried to dig into this problem and learn some coping skills. Like, hey, when we're upset, what's some things we can do? And I say it openly because I think it's something that everyone coming into the tournament, if it's something that you're struggling with, you should reach out and just talk about it with people. There are ways to control it, and I think it'll make it a better environment for everybody if everybody's able to manage themselves like that.
I definitely think when we were out last time for the tournament, or not for the tournament, for the last Mega Members Night, I saw Blackout definitely very angry, storming out of a lot of games, but didn't seem to give up in the middle of any of them or quit in the middle of any, and there was no explosive blowups in the lobby. And definitely these are things that can be different under the NATS pressure. But I think it's really okay to be upset coming out of a game And if what you need to do is you need to go take a lap outside real quick, as long as you're managing yourself, there's no shame in getting upset as long as you're able to manage it. And so that's, we're talking about looking excited to see different players make adjustments. I really would like to see from Blackout, see some really good management of his mentality going into this tournament and see how well he's able to hold up through these hard games, because there's definitely going to be a lot of hard games this tournament. And if he's able to hold up, I think that he will provide a lot of value to that team.
I think not only the out-of-game stuff, but in-game, there's a lot of just loud players, stubborn players, people with opinions, and they like to voice it on this team. And that may cause some conflict in-game that they'll need to figure out, whether it be listening to a single player or relying on the home site players. But I feel like there's going to be a lot of gears grinding in-game that they're going to have to figure out early, because in this arena, if you have mixed comms, you're doomed for sure.
Somehow I view Disco Stu, as being someone to help mitigate a lot of that. I don't know. I've never been able to get mad on a team with Stu. He is, if it's out of game, if there's got to be adjustments out of game, I do have a lot of trust that Disco Stu will be able to reel people in. And Rhea is not afraid to tell someone when they're out of line as well. So between the two of them and their leadership, I do have a lot of hope for them, as well as with the way that I've seen Blackout learn to take walks and manage himself. He's really come a long way since I met him about a year or two ago. But your concerns are all valid. I want to talk about the newest addition to the team, Lizzie Lizard. As of about 3 hours ago, was signed on to the Motor City Mutts. She is the leader of the UC Boulder Laser Tag and Pancakes Club. She brings up a bunch of college students to play laser ball every Tuesday, and she's been playing SM5 with us recently, and she was pretty excited when I said, hey, they're looking for a player. Here's kind of what they're looking for. And she's like, yeah, I'm free. Let's do it. It's like the most easy signing I'd ever seen. She's very mature and stable and has a good attitude. I think that will also help balance things out.
I think also at the bigger members night, she was like actively participating in the reffing and wanting to learn. Like, she isn't just there to play the game. She wants to learn it and like improve, which is like a huge positive, especially going to a tournament like this when you have players with this much experience that like is just a vast wealth of knowledge to help you improve, not just inside the arena, but like in a team setting.
I agree. Also, laser tag and pancakes are like two of my favorite things ever, so I'm very jealous that I'm not going to college in Loveland right now. But
yeah, that club sounds awesome.
It sounds sick.
Laser tag and pancakes.
Laser tag and pancakes.
That's just the average members night. You go play laser tag and then you go to Denny's.
Denny's, yeah.
True.
It's peak.
A time-honored tradition. That's really my rankings are actually just likelihood to go to Denny's after playing.
Last thing I want to add, I didn't mention this at the top, which remind me if I don't do it, but total number of Laserforce missions for this team, 8,998, number 6 ranking among all teams, and they have the 5th most SM5 missions in Loveland, 1,091. Rhea did come out and play in West Coast 22 on the Get in the Van team. And then a lot of the Loveland players rack up a lot of those numbers as well. So there is a good amount of experience.
Yeah, number 5 for arena experience is going to come in handy.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on the Motor City Mutts?
Nope. Get them out of here.
We're good.
Get them out. All right, coming in at number 6. Breaks my heart. 5 Nights at Loveland. Here we are. We're talking about the truth, what we think is the truth here between the 4 of us. And let's talk about it. Captained by Azra, this entire team is made of rookies. Azra, White Ninja, Judoku, Strikva, the Rat, and the Rock. Total number of Laserforce missions, last in the tournament, number 8, 4,776, but the second most SM5 missions in Loveland at the tournament, 2,881. So that is very interesting. It'll be interesting just off of that stat alone, seeing how they do. How much does it matter how many games you've played in total versus in the arena you're going to? Sweets ranked the number 5. Snuffles ranked the number 5. I ranked the number 5, but Odin's Fist hates Five Nights at Loveland and put them down at number 6. Odin, why don't you explain yourself?
Yeah, I love this team. I love the players. I've spoken at length with a lot of them, and I think that they play very well for their experience. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to an experience issue. Like you said, like this is a full team of rookies. Every single player on this team is eligible for the Rookie of the Year award, and that is just really rough. I think that the fact that they're a home site team is going to help propel them a lot. I also think that there's a lot of talent on the team, so I think that they will be playing well. I think that on a personal level, they're going to perform. The problem just comes in that, that experience causes a lot of struggles at NATS level competitions. I've seen players who I expected to perform really well just get slaughtered because they just weren't ready for the competition level at NATS. I think definitely my biggest concern is them going into finals. I think a lot of times you'll see home site B teams with new players really struggle going into finals. They take some hard losses as teams finally start figuring out the arena. Teams start doing things that they don't expect. They don't really have the experience to adjust that quickly to all these new strategies within game. Like maybe they can adjust, if they're seeing it throughout the week, but seeing people learn the arena and come in with new strategies going into finals can cause some really hard losses. And I'm really worried about team morale. Not that anyone on this team really has a history of like explosive blowups or anything, but I am worried about them getting demotivated, demoralized going into finals after taking some of those hard losses. Whereas they might have a chance to work their way up from, if you get bumped down to the bottom bracket in finals, you can still work your way back up, and that possibility still remains. But if they're demoralized going into that, they might struggle in that bottom bracket.
This for me was probably the hardest team to rank. I feel like there's so much variability. They're ranking like 4 or 5 times, and I was absolutely blown away by the skills of some of these players, like just on an individual level at the Mega Members Night and how far they've come. Obviously, practicing is really good for that, and that's probably where their higher part of the ranking comes from for me, is the individual skill and the constant practice against home site players, the A team especially, and getting insight and advice and all that. That's going to be a major bonus to them. But on the other side of that same blade is, with the lack of experience, the traveling teams are not going to play the same as the home teams. Almost every tournament we've ever had, when traveling teams come, they invent new ways to play the arena based on their own strengths learned from their home arenas. And so they may be so used to playing against the home site players and the A team that when new strategies are thrown at them, the curveballs may really, really break something within them. And that's probably, in my opinion, the hardest thing they're going to have to overcome. But just on an individual level, I think over half these players in the team could like solo carry a game. They're super good individually. I will say that at the Mega Members Night, I was a bit disappointed by the team play. I don't think there was a lot of coordination between some of the players, and maybe that's because it was treated like a members night and not like a team environment. But like before, I think Azra was the one that impressed me the most with the comms. Whenever someone was calling something out, she would like regurgitate the information to her teammates around her, keep a level head in game, and everyone was kind of looking to her as the leader of the team within the game. And she was, I think, the only person that I was impressed by in that aspect. Everyone else was not calling their shots out. They weren't playing around each other's gameplay. And I think that was a major disappointment. I mean, spoiler, I had them at 4 before the members night, and afterward I dropped them down a rank because of it. So I think their individual skill ceiling is there. They have it, and they're home site players. They need to get the team coordination down, or maybe it's a lack of effort at the Mega Members Night, and they need to have that effort maintained throughout this entire tournament, like Odin was saying, and not get demotivated or disappointed. A lot of these players are super young, just like strictly in age, and that's a lack of life experience and not being used to taking a couple punches here and there. So they're going to have to figure that out.
Yeah, I'm personally very excited for this team. Obviously, I had White Ninja as my player to watch. It was between him and Strikva. I think Strikva is, every time I travel to Loveland, he just gets so much better. He's A-team material easily. Obviously playing for the B team. But I'm so excited to see what he and White Ninja can do, specifically as the 3 hits. And I think that for this team overall, I agree that the most important thing is going to be working on their teamwork. I think I think they're going to get a lot of wins early on in the tournament just due to how fast they play and the high level they play at. I think it's going to be more like the last 2 days is where they're really going to struggle. Specifically like in finals. I think because although they're good, I think they are a bit one-dimensional in how they play just because of how new they are. And so I feel like people are going to adapt to them. And so, I think they're going to win a bunch, people adapt to them and beat them. And then we're going to have to see, can they then adapt to that and start, just improving and picking up games.
Yeah, I'm pretty much with you. Everything in me wants to rank them number 2 or number 1. They are. I love, as people, all the people on this team. I've seen them already put in the blood, sweat, and tears, having hard team meetings, taking hard losses and learning from them and growing. Everything that you hope to see from the younger players at your site. But I wanted to give what my honest thought, and for anyone on that team listening, I'm glad that they're listening to these criticisms, things that they can take. This isn't a random draw. It's not a West Coast. This is when people come out to show who's the best. It's why we're having this honest, candid conversation. It is really good to learn to take that hard criticism.
Yeah.
I can make excuses, some of them have been out of town for a little while and they haven't been able to practice as a full team. But you're right. They're going to get this last month of practice. I put them up where I did because they're going to have prep time more than anyone else in the tournament except us as Loveland A. Amazing talent on the team. And one extra advantage I'll throw in is that they all are really young, so they're going to have probably some of the most energy of any team at the tournament. They can just full sprint the whole time. But beyond that, yeah, I mean, I've come into tournaments being one of the less experienced teams for pretty much my whole career, and when you think it's not as simple as just running the same strategy over and over again. It worked last time, let's run it again. There becomes so much nuance and trickery and people figuring you out in a NATS. And we'll do everything we can to mentor them, of course, give them insight and help, but it's their team, their choices. And it's a combination of, one, they're going to make rookie mistakes because they're rookies, and they'll learn from that. Those mistakes can be the deciding factor between getting knocked out of an ELM bracket or not, though. Yeah.
Yeah. I think too, and this just goes hand in hand with them being rookies, is that this is a debut NATS for all of them. Mm-hmm. And that really has a meaning, when you are getting your first chance to show your stuff to the world, it's very daunting. And I think that a lot of these players are players who have a lot of pride tied to their skill level. And another concern for me is, people wanting to flex their own stuff. I've seen a lot of teams lose a lot of footing over the years because players really just wanted to have that one good show off game and just didn't stick to what their team needed them to do. So that would probably be one of my biggest concerns for this team. But this really is probably my favorite team at the tournament. I would love if they win the whole thing. That'd be amazing. I would love that. I'm just trying to be realistic from my experience, and honestly, if they do finish sixth, that's amazing. Showing up to your first ever NATS, and it's a team where all of you, it's your first ever time showing up, not taking last. That's already an incredible feat. So I really hope to see great things from them, and that no matter what, they should be proud of their performance as long as they give it their all.
One other positive I want to state about this team is I think they have a really high team camaraderie. Like a lot of these players are friends, and that is such an underrated value coming out of the game and not being pissed at each other and throwing chairs. You may be upset about the game, but you're not going to hate the other person on your team. They even have nicknames for their friendship. It's like these guys will be able to talk to each other on a more personal level and accept critique from each other. And I think that's like massive in terms of improvement, because when you're playing with someone that you've never played with before, you don't want to upset them. You don't want to hurt their feelings. But when you're friends with them, you could be a little more personal because you know how they're going to react. And I think everyone on this team knows each other pretty well. And that will be like really good for the adaptation outside of the game if they can keep their passion for it.
Disclaimer, please don't throw chairs.
I think another upside for them as well is how eager they are to get better. There's so many times we've come and we've done these mega member nights, and I'll play a game against one of them, and then after the game they'll ask me like, hey, what can I do better? And in the instance of say like Strikva, not only that, he's asked me like, hey, what did you think about this specific thing that I did at this moment? Was it the right thing? Could I have done it better? And I think those are the real like questions you need to ask people to actually get better. Not just, oh, what could I, do better? Obviously that's important, but like pinpointing something specific and trying to learn from that, I think is huge. And so, yeah, I'm just excited to see how much better they get.
Yeah, that awareness and self-analysis is really important. Even without asking questions, just being able to say like, okay, I'm consciously going to try a thing and see how it does and be aware of the impact that it has on the game. I think a lot of players don't understand the impact of their actions on the game. They do things and they might say, oh, this seemed to work. But yeah, Strikva in particular has a lot of self-awareness and puts a lot of thought into the way that he changes his gameplay. So very excited to see what he does throughout the tournament.
I'd also lump Sammy into that same category of like very aware of when a mistake is made and then how to not repeat that mistake. I think like even over the number of times we've been there, every single time you identify a mistake and then it won't happen again.
5 Nights of Loveland, you know how proud I am of you. You know how proud your site is and how excited the community is, and let these compliments on your skill be encouragement to you. Excited to see what odds they can overcome, because just because they're rookies doesn't mean they're going to make all the same mistakes of past rookie teams, but it's a stacked odd. Odds are stacked against them, and the teams that we're about to talk about all have really good players on them. So
yeah,
it ironically makes me think of our team from NATS last year, the Lunchbox Leftovers, who took 4th place, and everyone came out saying, you don't understand, you're so good, the teams in front of you were also just really good, but you're really good. It doesn't feel good coming from 4th place, but the truth is there. Like, even if Finale places down in the lower brackets, we all acknowledge like these kids can play. It's just about where they're at in their journey.
Yeah, a team of this skill being ranked 6th is pretty insane. Like at almost every other tournament, this team places top 3.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, look at, like, if you just take a random tournament from like 5 years ago, and look at the teams there and look at this team, especially, home site, you imagine a tournament in Loveland. I think that's another difficulty in this NATS is that so many traveling people have so much experience in Loveland now because we've been establishing all these events. We've been making attempts to get out there. We have a lot of serious players who have been actively and consistently traveling to practice. And it's just a different level of competition where they aren't able to leverage as many of their advantages here as home site teams have been able to in the past.
All right, let's take a quick break and we'll come back with our number 5 ranked team.
Do you want to play some laser tag?
And travel around the world?
Come watch us at youtube.com Laserforce Loveland.
Join the Rat Pack just like these guys did.
You guys are great. Swap him out for somebody else.
I love the people. I love the game. It's so unique, so different.
Better of a trade-off. You're trading a scout for a 3-hit.
And we're back with the Laserforce Internationals 2024 power rankings. We went through the first 3 teams. Coming in number 8 was St. George Sunbeams, number 7, Detroit Motor City Mutts, and number 6, Five Nights at Loveland. We're going down to number 5, and there is a surprise. We actually have a tie. Both teams ranked at an average of 4.75. The Los Angeles Phaser Department, Odin's Fist, Autumn, Snowflake, Disco Monkey, Manette, and Poopies, mercenary from Loveland, versus Sewercuse, Beans, Evil, Do Not Pass Go, Fox, Cody, and Jackal. So what I decided to do was I consulted 3 well-known names from the Laserforce community to break the tie. And after asking, I asked Scythe from Detroit, Guy Next Door from Auckland, New Zealand, and Maniac from Sacramento, California. And the vote was unanimous that they all believed Syracuse would place higher in the tournament. So
I would just like to say only one of those people was at NATS last year, but okay.
And we got a traitor, Maniac, voting for Syracuse there.
I was just expecting 3 pictures of Beans to be voting.
So coming in a consensus, number 5 is the Los Angeles Phaser Department. Odin's Fist, you're the captain. You got Autumn, Snowflake, Disco Monkey, Manette, and Poopies. You are number 4 in total number of Laserforce missions, 1,360, and you have 1,301 Space Marines missions in Loveland. Quite a lot of practice you've all put in already. Our rankings, this was the most divided out of all of them, I think, for us. We have Sweets ranked number 4. Snuffles and I ranked you as number 6, and you ranked yourself as the number 3 team. Dallin, I think you and I should probably be the first to speak on this. And I'm gonna hand it off to you politely.
Okay.
We should take responsibility. Why don't you go first?
Okay, yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, for me, obviously this team is very good. I think, obviously, Aiden, you and I just won NATS last year together, so I have nothing but the highest, utmost respect for you. The rest of your team is when, for me, it starts to dip a little bit. Overall, like, this team was really hard for me. I think probably like the second hardest team to rank, because I feel like on a good day in finals, you guys could get top 3, perhaps top 2 even. The thing that worries me, though, is getting to those finals in good condition. I feel like at members' nights recently, there's been some fatigue that has affected some people on your team, even during day one. And so that for me is like honestly probably the biggest concern. It's just, are you guys going to physically be able to handle it? But otherwise, it's a really good, solid team. I think Connor is. He surprised me with how well he played last time he came out, because I feel like he hasn't played. Oh, Snowflake. I feel like he hasn't played a whole lot recently, and so I wasn't expecting a ton, but I was quite impressed with him. When you guys, I think you had like 5 people from your team, not last time, but the time before. The big question for me on your team, though, is how well Minette and Poopies, which is a great name, play. I haven't seen Poopies play a whole lot. And Minette, as far as I'm aware, hasn't practiced. She's the only one who hasn't really practiced with your team yet. So slotting her in might be a bit difficult.
So I can say that Minette did come out to one Mega Members Night. I forget if
it
was
did she?
the third one, but it was just the one. But it was still, we did get your whole team out there. And my ranking, I don't have to say anything negative. You have great experience on your team. I think a lot of your players are underrated by the community. They're not like big flashy names like Scythe and Rusty, but they perform really well in tournaments and have good performances. And you've actually put in the effort to get a lot of arena practice. I ranked Finale number 5, and I watched your team in Finale play probably, was it 4 games at least in that third Mega Members Night when you had your full roster? And it was 50-50. You won, I think, 2 games, they won 2 games. I think that's what happened.
Sounds
now,
right.
That is when you were practicing with your full team back in like March, and Finale has gotten to practice that whole time since then. So to me, I've seen Finale advance, and I haven't seen you guys advance yet. You're going to have the tournament to do so, but I'm just betting that they'll be able to keep pace in front of your team.
So I guess I'll start with my criticism of the team is I think that this team may struggle in the back line. I think they have a lot of solid frontline players, but they have a lot of different mixed opinions in the back line. And then I don't think of anyone on this team as like a really solid resupply player, in my opinion. But I think big reactions.
Hey.
I mean, I guess I didn't win All-Star, so
You did lose to Cedar,
To
yeah.
be fair, I don't think you're going to be playing resupply on this team. That is the consideration that you are not playing in the back line. But going off of what Luke just said, I think the experience of this team is like vast. I don't know if the total LF missions there includes all the SAC games that were lost when SAC died, but you guys have played in so many tournaments, in so many arenas, in so many positions. I expect you guys to struggle a bit early, especially against someone like the FNAL team, but I think you guys will be able to figure it out, and I do expect you guys by playoffs or by finals to be beating that team because of the experience and like the being able to adapt to your problems. I think you will have problems, but you could band-aid around them. Also, what was said earlier, Connor, this dude doesn't practice very much, but every time he comes and plays, I think he performs really well, both on an individual level, and as long as he keeps his mental in check, I think he's really positive for a team environment most of the time. Same with Disco. The other word I have for this team is a bit of stubbornness in game and infighting within the game. A lot of you guys have really, because of your experience, you have very strong opinions on how the game should be played. And if someone is not playing like you want them to be playing, sometimes the paths diverge and the game ends because your heavy's upstairs and the rest of the team's downstairs. So if the team could stay in this right headspace, I think it has a really high ceiling. I'm just not sure that they'll get there, which will break the top 3.
Yeah. I without giving away too much, I'll talk a little bit about my expectations and things. Give you guys a little insight into why I'm so arrogant as to rank my own team third. I love you guys. I'm very happy to hear that two of you ranked my team sixth. That's just really great for me. I mostly because I love overcoming expectations, but yeah, I really like my team. I have told all of them that as long as everyone gives it their all, I'm going to be happy at the end of it. I think especially Disco Monkey is a phenomenal player. I think he's probably like one of the best players that's going to be going into this tournament. It's been very, very difficult deciding where to put him because he's such a valuable asset on the team. I have a lot of respect, especially the way that he's been playing lately. And talking about fatigue and stuff, Disco is a player that will go all the way every time, forever. He does not run out of gas. I remember in 2019 in Detroit, he had a destroyed knee. You could visibly see all of the internal bleeding from his knee, and he went hard all the way into finals against every single team. And he's a player that rises to the occasion. He's not a player that I usually think of to really carry teams, but there's a lot of games that have happened in the past. Like in 2019 Detroit, there's been games where we played Brisbane and our team got smashed, and Disco still maintained a positive hit diff, still actively contributed to the team, performed very well. And I have a lot of respect for him personally. I think he's going to bring a lot to this team. I agree. I think that we're going to have a hard time with maybe the back line and some different directions and stuff, and some different opinions on what should happen and how things should go. But I have a lot of hope for the team, and we've been putting a lot of effort not into winning games, but into practicing and preparing for NATS, where winning a game against teams at a members night doesn't matter because that doesn't get you anything in finals at NATS. So we've been doing a lot of practice and preparation. We've been focusing a lot on the changes that we need to make, playing around people's different strengths and stuff, and very excited to see how everyone on my team does. I'm going to do my best to really just be a pillar for the team and enable everyone else to do what it is that they're best at doing.
Commenting on that pillar part right there, I think of all the players we've come across so far, you were the first S tier player I would rank. Like the carry potential is there, just to just easily win a game just by outsmarting other people, outplaying other people in the arena. Like I think you're probably better than the large majority of the field coming, and so just simply outplaying people could win your team games. And I mean, as the fourth ranked team or fifth ranked team, I guess, being better than all the other players previously, I think that's a pretty huge asset to have on your team. So if your team is able to rally around that and really take advantage of the opportunities you provide them, which I think both Disco, Connor, actually kind of all these players in this team are used to finding spots and going for it. They take the 60-40s and they just go for it, and they could win games off that.
I'm really excited to see how this team evolves and adapts over the 4-day tournament. You all take the game very seriously. You have a lot of humility on the team, people that are willing to go to different roles and play different ways. And even though Sweets just called you S tier, which I think is an understatement, I don't see it as a team with a carry. I see it as a team that's actually pretty well-rounded across the board. I can and will absolutely defend that Poopies is a super good resupply in our arena. He's also tall enough to see over all the walls, so good luck sneaking up on him. He's been playing for over 10 years now. He's a really good asset to have on your team, just that he knows the arena, knows how to play it. And you all can kind of pick his brain and learn from him. But something you said, Aiden, is one of the reasons, probably the biggest reason why I have some doubts, and it's you're not sure quite where to put Disco. And I think in some other ways that can be said for the whole team. I've seen you guys flip your roles around a lot, and even just keeping my ear to the ground, trying to figure you all out. You know, that's just part of the game. I've been hearing even more rumors of like what you might be doing, and so I don't tell us your lineup here on air, you know. But
Oh, I will. You want to hear it?
I almost expect that this team is going to try some things, find out they won't work, and then like flip things around, and you may not build the consistency that way if you can't figure out what your strategy, what your lineup's going to be by day 2 or 3. Let's go ahead and move on to our number 4 ranked team here. Sewercuse.
Interesting.
Beans, Captain Beans, Evil, Do Not Pass Go, Fox, Cody, and Jackal, all out of New York. Total number of Laserforce missions, they rank number 3 with 17,165, but they rank dead last in total SM5 missions played in Loveland, 179, some of which are from 2015 NATS 9 years ago. Rankings. Sweets had them lowest at number 6, Snuffles number 4, Odin's Fist number 5, and I had them at number 4. Sweets, the floor is yours.
All right. My main detractor from this team is I think they have a lot of really confident players, and overconfidence hurts a lot in this arena. And so having so little experience in this arena and trying to play like you normally do, maybe in a home site or in any of their other 17,000 games, playing like a player that is expecting to dominate and then not doing as well as you thought really punishes you here. You get thrown downstairs, you get thrown into a closet or chamber, and your whole team is clustered in there and you're getting messed up. We saw this with the Stack Pancakes team. Those players are all individually skilled, and I would say most players in this team are like comparable to that Stack Pancakes team, and they had some really hard times figuring out how to play in the arena with a number of highly skilled players. I played with Beans and Cody in the most recent NATS team, and I think they're both like individually top tier, but woo, and Luke, let's go. But I think this arena doesn't suit their play style very well. Cody, I think, performed really well in the duos tournament. Mind you, he was getting really high scores on Medic because he was playing very aggro Medic, and that helped the MVP quite a bit. But I think he just plays really confident here. And if people are scared of him, he's going to dominate them. But I think there's enough high-tier players this tournament that are confident in their own playstyle that they will take advantages of the opportunities that are presented by playing overconfident here. And so that's my main detractor for these guys. On the other side of it, I think the individual skill is really high. I mean, I think Beans is the only player I've seen consistently score like above 10K on Scout, and that's just like ridiculous. I can't even score like 9K on Scout, and he'll just drop like a 13 casually. So I don't know what he's playing in this tournament, but being able to score that high at all on Scout, just in this arena, in my opinion, is probably the most important role, or at least the most influential. They have a lot of sway on the game. So if their scouts are able to step up and drop anything even close to that in a low-scoring arena like this, the game's over. So.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of skill in this team, and I think the reason I rank them at 5th is because while I think that they will struggle a bit with adapting to the arena, they have a lot of competitive experience, and I really value that a lot. That's something I didn't mention for my team, but is a big selling point for me on my team. Is I think that we have a lot of tournament experience, and the same is true for this. I mean, Beans has been playing forever. You know, you have Cody has been showing up to a lot of recent events, has been very serious, has been very committed. You know, Lenny, Do Not Pass Go, has been playing for a while. You know, Fox, like they're just like like Jackal is a fairly new player, but aside from that, like they're a very tried and true team, and Jackal has still been playing tournaments for a few years now. I think that tournament experience is really going to shine for them. I think it's really going to let them show up, take the game seriously, adapt, pick up what other teams are doing, get value out of their reffing, because that's a thing that you notice a big difference between like experienced teams and inexperienced teams is what they're looking for while they're reffing too. And I think that's going to help them a lot. I also like at the end of the day, NATS comes down to finals, and Sewercuse has very often been a well-performing finals team. They know how to kick it into gear once you cross that threshold. You know, how many years have we seen Beans on scout the whole tournament, and then all of a sudden he goes onto commander and starts pulling, you know, rabbits out of hats and making things happen that propel their team forward. And so I'm kind of expecting to see a lot of that from Sewercuse this year. But I definitely am concerned about their ability to adapt to a multi-floor arena, their ability to like maintain awareness of multiple floors. And that's not just true for, you know, looking up, but looking down as well. You know, things like pushing across third floor and getting shot from second. That field awareness can really bite you in the back during some very critical moments. So I'd be interested to see how that hinders them.
For me personally, I really don't buy the whole like, oh, you know, they're not very good in multi-storied arenas. Simply because, for me personally at least, I don't feel like there's a huge difference between a one-leveled and a multi-story. Obviously there is, but I don't think it's a big enough difference that it makes much of a difference. Especially, in my opinion, Loveland. Obviously, going downstairs in Loveland is a death sentence. But I think the mistake a lot of people make is they go downstairs and they stay downstairs, which is why they lose, instead of fighting to go back up. A big concern of mine, though, is about half the players haven't played here as far as I'm aware. And they also haven't really traveled outside of Sewercuse much, aside from Detroit. Namely, like Fox, Do Not Pass Go, and Jackwall. From what I've heard, they really don't travel much at all. And so I definitely think they will struggle with the arena in that sense, but not really because of the multi-story. But yeah, I think Beans is going to carry so many games for them. I'm excited to see how he does. Mm-hmm. And of course, I think the biggest thing this team has going against them is the brownie milkshake combo. So they'll have to look out for that.
My goodness. I'd like to add on to Snuffle's case for why this team, for me, is in the top 4, and I think could take higher. I'll start out by shouting out my lunchbox leftover boys. Beans and Cody are definitely big assets on this team. Beans has played 5,000 plus games at 22 sites. He's ridiculous. He has a long track record of being able to be kind of a solo carry. And Cody, I'm actually very impressed with Cody. Over the last couple of years, he's put in work to become proficient in the Loveland site. In West Coast 22, 6 of the top 10 commander scores from that tournament all belong to Cody. And he placed 3rd in duos, which, having only played one other tournament here, isn't something you can just walk in and do, even if you have Simply Okay as your other partner. Cody pulled his weight in that duos event. Yes, he did not play medic the most carefully, but he also plays a very mean heavy in commander in our arena. Between the two of those bringing experience, if it was just that, I wouldn't be putting them this high. I think if we were playing in a neutral arena where no one had ever played there before, this would be a team contending for first. I think top to bottom, they have some of the most talent. And a little history lesson, Sewercuse came out here for NATS 2015. They took 3rd place. Beans, Do Not Pass Go, and Fox were all on that team, so they all do have that experience.
I was still wrong then.
No, you're good. 9 years ago, could all be gone for all we know. Whatever they did, our arena has some new walls added and bottom floors changed a bit since 2015. But the point is, I agree with you, Dallin. There is that rumor that you can't adapt to a multi-floor arena, but they did come in and they adapted enough to take third place 9 years ago. I don't see why they can't do it again. The only downsides I see here, I'm just worried with how little site experience they have. The question is, will they be able to figure it out? And also, their team, I worry about competition over the 3-hit roles. I worry about people believing they should get to play certain roles and not playing whatever they need simply because their team needs it. I think there are 4 people who could be a great commander on this team, and potentially could play it. But how will they all synergize, or will it just be a bunch of solo carry players trying to beat up whoever's in front of them?
I think theoretically the main difference between a 1 and 2 story arena is once you're pushed downstairs, how do you retake second floor? You're bottlenecked into 2 ramps, and good teams like I think Loveland A and St. George are especially good at this, will spread out and keep you pinned downstairs. And unless you're experienced at how to retake a second floor, you feel like you're just running into a wall. You walk up the ramp and you get shot and you walk right back down. So I think that's something that's going to be a bit of a difference, because the defensive player has the advantage, and when they have the high ground, there's a major advantage for that defensive player. So trying to get past that is really hard, and even pushing onto third from second here, it's a bit of a story difference. But I feel like you run into some of the same struggles. And the other, I guess, downside that was briefly mentioned is this arena is very bodily intensive because of those ramps. There's a lot of running up and down them, and some of these players in the past have struggled with just sheer exhaustion over the amount of games here. And I think some of their players are a bit older, and so I don't know how everyone's knees are doing, but I know after the Mega Members Night, I was super sore, and I still consider myself pretty young. So just hopefully their bodies are ready for the intensity of the tournament. I don't know how often they're practicing either in their home site too.
Yeah, I fully agree on that pushing upstairs part, and I think being able to really understand and adjust to certain circumstances and certain strategies and tactics, and understanding what you need to do in situations. A lot of that comes down to experience, which is where you see experience really shine throughout the years. Players who have experienced a lot of different situations and circumstances and tournaments, know how to adapt to different situations a lot better. And sometimes strategies that may seem ineffective can be effective against teams that just aren't prepared for them. I played at a random draw in Detroit, and my team had done the wall strategy as kind of a last ditch effort, and the other team just didn't understand how to play against it. And so even though a lot of experienced players will say the wall is easy to play against, it's not that hard to beat. If you don't know what you're doing and you're going into that situation, it can still be, catastrophic for you. And so I agree, especially if they aren't regularly talking about things like how to take upstairs, or these things that require a lot of coordination, which is really what I think it comes down to. I think they're going to have a hard time with that, but we'll see what they're able to do by, talking outside of the game and figuring these things out and ironing stuff out. But I do think Loveland requires you to play so much as a cohesive unit that having certain things planned out and expected ahead of time helps enable you to do the things that you have to do in game. That being said, Sewercuse does have this, weird little telepathy link going on, where you can play games against them and it's like they're not saying anything, but all of a sudden all of them are just playing off of each other and where they need to be. So, maybe that experience playing with each other and how well they know each other as players will, come through and shine for them. And if it does, I definitely could see them placing higher. I think that they have enough strength and power on this team to really cause some upsets and perform very well.
We need to move on. I have to rectify one fact though. Do Not Pass Go, I think, actually was subbing for St. George in 2015, but Fox played for Syracuse. But Lenny does have experience in Loveland.
Do Not Pass Go and Beams also played in Sacramento NATS 2017. So they definitely have a lot of experience with multi-floor arenas. But, I was basing some judgments based on performances that I saw in Sacramento. So, different year, different players, see how well they're able to do here.
Absolutely. All right. Let's do one more before we take another break here. Number 3. Here's where it gets really spicy.
All right, the spice.
Cedar City Sentinels coming in at number 3. Captained by Slaughtermelon, with Thunder, Snuffles, Metalface, Meds, and Chaser. Total number of Laserforce missions coming in at number 5 with 10,933. And ranking number 3 with total SM5 missions in Loveland at 2,089. Odin's Fist, ranking them at number 4. Mischief, myself, and Sweets, we both have them at number 3. And Snuffles, ranking at number 1. Odin, I think once again you got a little explaining to do here.
All right, yeah. This is a strong team. They have 3 world champions from last year's NATS. They have a lot of power, a lot of experience, a lot of strategy on this team. I have a lot of respect for these players. And the thing is, I had them ranked kind of second, third for a while. Just kind of trying to figure out where to put them. Unfortunately, with them taking Chaser and Metalface, lots of love to those players. They're great players. There's just a big experience gap there. Especially experience in the arena, experience playing at NATS and competitive levels, and playing at competitive levels. With this team too. Like Metalface had played before in 2021 in Syracuse on resupply, and there was some struggles there. I know that there were some issues with him syncing up with the team and stuff. And those are kind of my leading worries going in. Is while I feel like Slaughtermelon, Thunder, and Snuffles are very, very strong, actively competing NATS level players. They form kind of like this plate mail of the team. But then with 2 very inexperienced players, that's kind of like the gaps in the armor, if you will. Like I said, lots of love and experience for them. But when you're looking at a tournament like this that's so heavily stacked, and you're looking at those top 3 spots, that's it's really, really difficult to break through sometimes if you don't have that level of consistency, that level of experience. So I definitely think that there's enough power on this team to win everything. I think that really a lot of teams going to this tournament have the potential to win it all, but I definitely see some struggles in their future, and we'll have to see how well they're able to play through that.
I would love to sing the praises of the Cedar City team for a few minutes, because you've had quite the run over the last 2-3 years. West Coast 22 was a real showing of the power and the creativity of the Cedar City site. That's the thing about where we're at in the meta, in the Laserforce community. It's not 1 or 2 players just carrying a whole team anymore. If you have a full team that's built on the same strategy, mission, experience, synergy, you become bigger than the sum of your parts, and that's what we saw in 22, I think. It was most of the same team. The same bone structure was, you, Snuffles, Slaughtermelon, Thunder, and Meds was a really important part of that structure too. A very important, experienced part that played his role great, making up this team structure. Not to mention, last year in duos, you and Slaughtermelon came in, and we can say things about going offensive medic, but you still played scout and 3-hit very well. I think I remember a game where you and Slaughtermelon both had like 9k scout scores when it was like some lesser ranked 3-hits that you were playing with, and you two just basically went ham. Like, you two can effing play our arena. You're no joke. You're both very highly ranked among our players. The structure has, I think, taken a huge hit losing Tandor. I just went back and I looked at the impact that he made, and I'm like, this sucks for you guys. I really was, like, it was a weight off our chest as competitors, but like, I really felt for you. I really did. Tandor was in West Coast 22. He was the #1 heavy in the tournament, and he was the #3 overall player by MVP. MVP is not everything. I use it a lot because I like to use stats. And now it's internationals. We didn't put out our full lineups in Loveland. Not everyone was taking it NATS level seriously. And in place of Tandor, you do have two people who are less experienced in these roles. I don't think Middleface is quite as rookie as we give him credit for. He did play in 21, and he did a great job out in Sewercuse. He has a reasonable number of games. He played in West Coast out here as well, on Laser Taser's team. And I thought he played pretty well at the last Mega Members Night. I think he'll do fine filling in roles for your team, but he's not going to be able to play at the level that you, Thunder, and Slaughtermelon can. And I really like Chaser. I got to meet him for the first time before our last Mega Members Night. He is teachable. He clearly has the core skills because he was able to come in and experiment a lot. He was willing to take risks. He played a multitude of roles, but he only has 6 games at our site as of this moment. So even though he has like the foundational pieces of a good laser tag player, he's got to get there. And can he get there by day 4? Can he get there when every team at this tournament is trying their absolute hardest to crush you? He's going to make potentially rookie mistakes, as rookies will. So I agree. It's now a very strong structure, but it's not a fully cohesive structure. And that's, by the way, just because I put you at 3 doesn't, we talk about your team #1 in our team meetings. Like, we are terrified of you.
Okay.
Yeah, this is what I would call the big scary territory of, like, everyone from here on out is like easily potential winner of the tournament. I think all the other teams have chances, but all these 3 teams, like, if they won it, no one would bat an eye. And I guess I'll start with just glazing this team is like, for me, an S tier player is someone that has a unique skill set, something that is like beyond what most players ever will be able to do in the game. And this team has multiple players like that. And the 2 I want to talk about are Slaughtermelon and Thunder. Thunder has the unique ability to teleport wherever in the arena at any time he wants, and he's just somehow always behind you, shooting you in the back before you could shoot him back. And that is really, really hard to play against as a 3-hit. And most 3-hits that haven't played against Thunder consistently aren't used to that. We struggle with that at NATS in Auckland, where our 3-hits were constantly getting in and doing work, and then they get shut down by Thunder or by Snuffles. And that's something that is like unique to this team, and every other team is going to have to adapt around this team. And then Slaughtermelon, this was his original arena, and everything he does here, if any other player did it, I would tell them, what are you doing? This is a terrible idea. But when Caleb does it, or when Slaughtermelon does it, it works. And a lot of the time, it just wins the game. He, I think, out of every player in the US, has the most carry potential if he has the resources given to him. I think he can struggle when he doesn't have those resources, but if the team plays around it and gives it to him, he will just outright carry the game probably 75% of the time. And so that is an extremely scary player to play against, if not controlled properly. And the rest of this team is no joke. I think all of the players on this team are really highly skilled. But as mentioned before, with Metalface and Chaser, I think those are the two players with the clearest weaknesses. And I'm not worried about the top end of this team. It's on those two to step up and not be making the mistakes. And even just playing at an average standard level, you could win the tournament. They don't have to carry this team, and they have to know that's their position for this team is they don't have to be the one that steps up and really carries it. They just have to play clean, consistent tag. And in my opinion, I think Metalface is going to struggle a bit with that because he's someone who's really excited about the game. He's really passionate. He wants to go do things, and sometimes he oversteps or doesn't realize someone's behind him, and it's a mistake that he makes, I think, quite often. And he's aware of that, and he's working on that. But I think it's going to be a detriment to this team unless he cleans it up for this tournament. I don't know Chaser as well, but I think he has a number of similar issues to Metalface, in which they're both really good on some aspects of the game, and they have very clear struggles on other aspects of the game.
Yeah, I just think that, like, you know, this year at NATS, we unfortunately don't have the Brisbane team coming out. But historically, Brisbane has really been like just shoo-in for finals at minimum, just every year. Everyone's like, oh, Brisbane's either going to win or they're at least going to get to the grand finals. And a large part of that was that they were just a team that didn't slip, you know? They were a team that, like, you knew that you were going to have a fight every single time. And this year, we have so many strong, powerful teams, but I feel like none of the teams have that aspect to them, you know? I think there's a lot of room for teams to get the seat kicked out from under them and to slip up in some really big way, especially in finals. And, you know, when I'm looking at the top teams, I feel like there's just more room for that in this team than some of the others. I think that's really what it comes down to. Like Metalface and Chaser, love them both as players. I think they're great. I loved going up to St. George and playing with them. I love seeing them progress as players. But you know, they have that rookie component. There's a lot of room for them to just make a mistake that is devastating to the team, more so than players on the other teams.
I think
One
other real quick, one other aspect. I don't think we've touched enough on Snuffles here. Is like Snuffles is no joke either. Like this man at Mega Members Night was kicking my butt every single game I played against him. And that is quite an intimidating player. And talking to some of the other like top players this tournament, like, oh, who are you scared of? Snuffles is one of the names that comes up quite often in just strictly in duels and in gameplay. You're someone that moves constantly throughout the game, so you're always like down the throat of other players. You're not giving them a break or giving them a rest, and it's quite intimidating in an arena where you can see the enemy resupply right down a hallway, and you could also see Snuffles right there. So. Yeah, I think that's another scary aspect of the team.
This team, it really is scary. I mean, you know, Caleb is scary to play against as commander. He does a lot of crazy things, and that's scary when you're trying to play a game where you want to know everything. You know, information is key, and you have this guy who's just a wild card, and you never know what he's going to pull out. He's going to do some crazy stuff, and you know that, but how can you prepare for it? And then, you know, Snuffles is just a very strong player, and I feel like they could really field Snuffles anywhere. And Thunder, you know, has just been so consistent over the years. He's been so strong, especially like some of his heavy play. Thunder on heavy in 2017 Nats in Sacramento was amazing. That was actually watching Thunder play heavy in that tournament made me want to play heavy. And then I played a game. Actually, I subbed for Sweets' team for a few games that tournament and played heavy for them. And I was like, I want to be like Thunder.
Don't we all?
All right, let's
he's
get
a
down.
bit washed now as a 3-hit, but he's good. Man, there's so much I want to like touch on. First things first, I did expect us to be ranked third. Even though I know I'm very cocky outwardly, I did expect that once we dropped Tandor. And speaking of that, obviously that sucks, but honestly, a part of me's kind of happy about it. One, to give some new players who have been proving themselves, Chaser and Metalface, a chance, you know, on a good, solid A team. And two, to win without him. He is my older brother, And so when I won Nats, it's like, hey, I won and you haven't. And so for me, it's like, oh, if I can win 2 without him, I can just rub that in his face. And so that's exciting for me.
That's
on our rookies, I agree. Obviously, that's the biggest question mark. I will say that what gives me hope and why I ranked us first is Chaser and Metalface are 2 players who listen and genuinely try to get better. I think we saw it with Metalface at last Mega Members Night. Day 1, he struggled quite a bit. He did. But the other 2 days, I thought he just got so much better. He was adapting really well. And Chaser is... I have never seen a player improve as much as Chaser has with how little he has played the game. Straight up. I can go on about this guy for so long. I won't, obviously. But I'm excited to see what he does. And I think my final thought is, honestly, I feel like the biggest pressure is on me. Truly. I feel like, because, like, you know, there's the rookie, so it's like, okay, they'll do like okay, they might do really well, they can definitely bring the team down. That's expected. Caleb, I think, is going to be the best commander at this tournament. Thunder, in my opinion, is the best scout in the world at this moment, based on the last several years. And I think Meds is super solid. So for me, I feel like I really have to like perform really well, which is both nervous but very exciting because I don't know, I just like proving myself. So I've never been this excited to play on a team before. So yeah.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, Snuffles, in all my team meetings, I've talked about you the most. So
my God.
I'm like, yeah, we got to beat up Snuffles.
Okay, that's not very nice, but
bring out the pencils.
No, you brought this on yourself. You've had probably the most drastic improvement I've ever seen any player make since I first met you in 2017. Remember that tournament?
2018.
No, 2018. West Coast 20. That's only 6 years ago, and you're a world champion now. That's insane. In 5 years, you went from... You remember that tournament. I don't think you remembered it all that fondly.
I have nightmares about it, yeah.
Snuffles was, and I quote, booty cheeks.
Yep.
And
that is true.
You used it as such fuel. Next thing I knew, I heard, oh, yeah, St. George took first at their West Coast tournament. Snuffles was their main heavy. He's a killer in the arena. I'm like, oh, he's getting better. And then you just come out and you're just kicking butt, dude. Like, I think your biggest strength is your intellect, personally. I think you're very adaptable. I look forward to matching up against you. It'll be a real chance to prove yourself. You're right. You're no longer going to have one of your key components, your older brother. Can you step in and fill that role? In many ways, it's a great headline of a story.
Yeah. I, as someone who played on a team with Snuffles and won internationals, one of my favorite things about Snuffles.
But you were on that team?
No.
Yeah, he carried me, dude.
I mean, one of my favorite things about Snuffles is Snuffles listened. And it's not just a, like, oh, you need to shut up and listen to the experienced players. Like, Snuffles listened to everything that every person had to say. And Snuffles very clearly is, taking in information this whole time and just doing everything to build it into his play and to get better and improve. And I think at a NATS, that's just one of the biggest things you need. You need to be able to take in all that information, and you need to be able to build it into your play style and adjust. And so Snuffles is my biggest concern for this team. I have to say, I understand every team has, their own reasons and opinions and stuff. I was personally a bit disappointed to not see Sadie picked up on this team. That's actually what bumped the team ranking down for me. I think if they picked Sadie up, I would have ranked them a little higher personally. And it's primarily an arena experience thing. We've been seeing Sadie come out very consistently, and she's been performing very well and consistently. Between Metalface and Chaser, there's a lot of unknowns for me. And I think that's really the difference maker here.
I would like to add.
Go ahead.
Sorry, just real quick. Thank you for all the glazing. I will say the only reason I've gotten as good as I am is because of Thunder. This guy is so insane. You guys have no idea how well this guy just understands the game inside and out. I'd be like an eighth of the player I am right now if it wasn't for him.
Good guidance is so nice, and that's a big thing, especially with Nats and these new players. Is so many people in the community are so willing to give their knowledge and experience, and so coming out to these tournaments and seeing so many people play, it's not just about what you can steal from them, but what they'll give to you. Especially for the weaker teams. A lot of times you'll get people like, "Hey, I noticed you did this. It might be better if you try doing this other thing instead." And make sure that you go in with an open mind, because these are your competitors. But a lot of us take the game very seriously, and we're not trying to sabotage you with bad information. A lot of us are just giving you different perspectives. So keeping an open mind and trying to learn from different people can be very beneficial.
All right, let's go ahead and wrap this up. We're gonna take a break. We'll come back with the top 2 teams and our predictions for Rookie of the Year.
Rapid fire activated. Payback available. Missile available. Rapid fire activated. Reset available.
Liquid Death. It'll make you awesome at Laserforce, probably.
Welcome back to Laserforce International's 2024 Power Rankings. Let's go back through our consensus rankings that we've gone through so far. Number 8, we have the St. George Sunbeams. Number 7, the Detroit Motor City Mutts. Number 6, Five Nights at Loveland. Number 5, LA Phaser Department. Number 4, Sewercuse. And number 3, Cedar City Sentinels. Coming on to number 2, we have the California Inner Peace Team. Captained by Kodama, World Champion, and Death Knight World Champion as well. With Thanatos, Sweets, Applesauce, and Dill Pickle. They have the most total Laserforce missions at the tournament with 18,761, and that does not include all of the games that were deleted off of Death Knight and Thanatos' cards, which they will bring up every time you mention how many missions they have.
Every time.
Yep.
Total number of SM5 missions in Loveland, they actually rank number 6 with 779. Consensus rankings, we have Sweets bringing it in at number 2, a humble number 2 from the man on the team, as well as Odin's Fist and myself have them at number 2, and Snuffles ranking number 3. So Snuffles, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, I mean, I think this team obviously is going to be incredibly difficult to beat. I think the biggest thing for me is Kodama as heavy. Very good heavy player. Very good heavy player in Loveland. I feel like Loveland, the way you kind of play heavy in it, suits his play style really well. And on top of him just being a good player, it just goes hand in hand. So I'm excited, but also slightly terrified at facing him up there. But it's going to be fun. I think overall, the rest of the team, super solid, top 2 players across the board. One thing, I actually originally had this team at 4th for a couple reasons. A big one actually was Nolan. When I was hearing you were playing Scout, and when I was hearing this, I was like, Nolan is a terrible Scout player.
Yeah, he sucks.
That was my honest opinion. But this last Mega Members Night, I feel like you played Scout so well. Like the improvement I saw from like previous times I've seen you play Scout, it was genuinely very impressive. I'm like, okay, so there's that issue I feel like is for the most part gone. I think the two big concerns I have now comes with Dill and Fan. Dill has not played much recently. Hasn't traveled out. I think the last time he came out to a thing was 2022, which was about 2 years ago. Hasn't played much since then. So, and we talked about him earlier at the start of the episode. He does adapt very well, so I expect that. But how just good he is across the board is a question mark for me. And with Fan, I think super wise, knowledgeable player, very good. The issue I see with him is just if he can hold up. He has struggled a decent amount at these member nights in some of the games when he's forced into a position where he has to move a lot, namely going up and down the ramps several times in a game. He struggles with that. And so if you guys get in a situation where you're kind of up and down quite a bit, I'm scared that he's not going to be able to keep up. But overall, you guys super solid. I'm excited to play against you.
Yeah, this team has a lot of meat on it and a lot of experience. That number one total Laserforce missions. They and it's not just members night experience either. Kodama, Death Knight, Thanatos. So many tournaments between them. And Sweets, Applesauce, and Dill have all shown up to tournaments. They've all come out and played several times. They have the experience. I have a lot of respect for all these players. I think that it's going to be really easy for this team to find their groove and find what kind of works for them. I don't think they're going to have as many lineup question marks as other teams. My biggest concerns for them that I think they might struggle with are just making sure that they are all on the same page for how to play the arena, and B, the backline, particularly resupply. I'm going off an assumption that we're going to see Thanatos and Applesauce in the resupply. I think that makes the most sense to me. My concern is that Thanatos is a player with so much experience, and that thing that comes with experience that we talk about, where you have a concept of how to play the game and you have a definitive play style and you have very, very strong and well-backed thoughts on, okay, these are things that work. He's coming in and playing with Applesauce, who's a very strong-headed resupply player. Very confident. She really likes to just make a decision and go with it. And so one of my biggest concerns for this team is the resupply not being on the same page, which is really rough in Loveland because recovery is so important in that field. So if your resupply isn't on the same page, they get split up, you aren't able to recover as fast or as well. That can be a real game changer, especially in these top tier games, especially against teams that will punish you for it. That's my biggest concern. Other than that, I feel pretty confident with these players in a lot of roles. I think they have a lot of flexibility too. DK or Death Knight is just a phenomenal all-around player. He's won All-Star and MVP awards just all over the place, everywhere, all the time. He's played so many different positions in so many different tournaments, and I've seen him perform them all at the top tier. Kodama has shown up and performed very well. And Sweets is a great all-around player too. I mean, when I think of consistent, reliable players, you're one of the people that I think of. I think that I can rely on you to get a job done, and I think you play very well positionally. So I definitely think having you in the field is valuable. I think you played resupply well last year at NATS, but I definitely think in an arena like Loveland, where structure matters, I think having you out in the field to support the team is going to be very strong and something to watch out for.
It was a tough decision between putting this team at number 2 versus the Cedar City team, and I think what it came down to was the overall structure is stable. Not just stable, but good, and in some cases excellent or S tier in other areas. As sure as the sky is blue, I think we're going to see a Kodama heavy. This is basically the structure of the Chula team that came out in 22, and then you replace a couple of the players with Death Knight and Thanatos, both world champions, extremely knowledgeable, good with leadership. You take these two and you allow them to impart their experience and build synergy and strategy with 4 players who are all already in really good synergy, have a track record of success and a base that they can build off of. Goodness, what I am most afraid of is if we beat you in a game, when y'all go into the back room and you break down what just happened. And I know we're not getting away with that again. And how many times are you going to play us over and over all tournament? Yeah, you guys got the brains and the talent all around to win this tournament. It's just kind of like a different path and some different question marks than other teams. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. I'll talk a little more in a minute. But
I'll take this opportunity to talk up some of my teammates then. I think Cayman is the best heavy in the tournament, hands down, especially for his playstyle in this arena. I don't think anyone's matching him, so that's a huge strength for our team. And I think Arrowan or Applesauce has the best instincts of any resupply player at the tournament. Maybe not the fastest, maybe not the best reaction speed, but like specifically for the resupply role, I don't think anyone has better like gameplay than she does. So that's kind of our backline locked in, and then it's kind of undeniable that Dylan's height is a massive advantage for the kind of story and a half that goes from 2 to 3 here. He's probably one of the few players besides some of the tall guys in Loveland that can see up into third from second. So that just unlocks more of the arena to play around for us that I think other teams won't be expecting. And then, like we said, we have some of the most, actually probably the most experienced players here, just in terms of like game and time playing laser tag. So the adaptability of those two players and the awareness of where they need to be in the game is beyond even like my understanding. So I think it's a really big benefit. Everyone on this team is very aware of their strengths and weaknesses and is going to be playing around them and making sure we fit like puzzle pieces with each other. So I expect us to be extremely cohesive and really functioning properly.
Yeah, I think Death Knight is one of the most impressive team players I've ever played with. I don't think anyone that I've ever played with who knows as much just where everyone should be in a game. He's playing, and not only is he like, oh, this is where I should be instead, he also knows where everyone else should be. If you come up to him and you're like, where do you need me? He'll be like, go there, do this. If I were to consider Thunder to be one of the best strategists in SM5, coming up with like how to approach the game and strategy, I would consider Death Knight to be possibly the best tactician in the game, to be able to adjust within the game and really understand what's happening and how to take on different situations and how to maneuver in ways to build advantages, which is a great strength. A lot of people will say, oh, we need to defend here, we need to attack there, we need to do rotations. But Death Knight has shown time and time again that it's so much more complicated than that, and there's some really interesting things that you can do with people, especially because we are all human. He's very good at proving that to people over and over again, that you can fall for some interesting little tricks and techniques and strategies. And so if he's coordinating the team in the field, it's definitely going to make everyone a lot scarier than they might be on their own.
Yeah, and just backpacking off what you just said, Death Knight, not only is he considered one of the best players at this tournament, I still think he gets underrated quite often.
Yeah.
He is top tier at every single position. Like you said, super good tactician. For our NATS team that won last year, he was like our leader, basically. He was like the main guy. Obviously, we all like had turns and did our part, but like he was like the main guy who really got us in line and on what to do. Yeah, I think he's a huge asset for Eddie.
Yeah. Like I said, you've given DK and Than some really great players to work with. I will agree that Kodama, like he has really figured out how to play heavy effectively in our arena, and his play style allows him the freedom of mobility to execute the plans that he has in his head. Like he, more than any player I know, puts in the work physically and mentally to be able to play at a top level. I also want to shout out my other buddies from Lunchbox Leftovers. I agree that Applesauce is going to be one of the best resupplies in this tournament. She is really good at what she does, and thinking to Aiden's point, like I could see her and Than having different philosophies on what they should be doing, but I also think that they're both humble enough and committed to the team to agree on one vision and actually stick to it. They're not players that are going to get all egotistic and like sabotage the team, and I don't think the team will let that happen for very long if it does happen. And Nolan, you came to me and you said like, yo, I was thinking I want to be more of an offensive player. Played a lot of resupply. And you're asking me how to do that. I'm like, just you gotta get games, ultimately. And I'm really proud of you for going out and doing it. You're the number 3 commander at our site.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Did you check out your player spotlight? For players with 10 or more games, you're the number 3 commander right now. So a little bit of there could be some regression, but just I throw that out as a fun stat. But really, like, you have good skill sets and you synergize well with people. I think all your experience playing ammo in the past tournaments you've done actually lends you a lot to being good at many of the supportive aspects of Scout. And you showed out this last Mega Members Night. I think you deserve that spot just as much as anyone on the team deserves their spots. Okay, let's move on to number 1. At consensus,
I wonder who it's gonna be.
We have Loveland Phoenix, captained by myself, Mischief, with the Fear Turkey, Sergeant Tucker, Brahmatized, Simply Okay, Ghost, and Loki as the 7th. Snuffles had us at number 2, and Sweets, Aiden, and myself, we all have us number 1. Total number of Laserforce missions is actually number 2. That kind of surprised me. We have 18,707 total Laserforce missions, and we're number 1. Obviously, with total SM5 missions in Loveland. That margin, by the way, is 8,000 more games in Loveland than the next team, which is Loveland B. So, take it away.
I guess I'll start because I was,
Yeah, you're the hater.
I think.
Yeah, hater.
I think obviously this team is the team to beat, even though I did put them second. Obviously, I have faith in my own team that we will win. Obviously, everyone's looking at this team like, all right, this is probably the favorite. This is who, if we can take games off them, we can win this thing. All around, obviously, you guys super solid. I remember my first tournament was in Loveland. I remember playing against you, Josiah, and Slaughtermelon on that A team. I was like, man, these guys are like so good. They're just so much better. You guys were like a big inspiration for me to get better. So thank you for that. And there's not a whole lot of negative things about this team. The one thing I will say, which I alluded to much earlier in this video, was some of the mentality of this team. That some of your players, I'm not going to name names, but a good chunk of them struggle with staying calm and collected, both in game and then after a game happens. For me, another big thing that's a part of that is leading up to duos in Loveland last year. Caleb's like, "Hey, we need a team name, you and I." And I thought, I don't know, let's do a little bit of shit talking. I was like, what about Loveland So Easy? And when I said that, I meant it as the arena itself is so easy, because a lot of people are like, man, Loveland's so hard, it's so difficult. And I was like, nah, it's easy. And everyone, and maybe I came across wrong, but everyone took that as
you did.
Yeah, which is fair. But it was Loveland players are so easy to beat. And a lot of the players took that very personally. I meant it purely as a joke, just a little bit of spice for the tournament. But not only did I hear people telling me so and so is so mad about your team name, I heard some of your players during the event talk about it and how upset they were. And so for me, it's if something that small can really get under your skin like that and upset you, I'm concerned about what's gonna happen if you guys start dropping some games. That for me is the biggest question mark. But if you guys can keep a cool, collected head, you guys are going to be ridiculous. It's going to be a pain in the butt. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I got to agree with you on that arena thing. I remember playing in 2018 and everyone's like, this arena is so stupid and impossible to play. And I'm like, are we playing in the same arena?
It was my first tournament, and I felt like I figured it out by the end of it, even though I was still super bad. I felt like
it came pretty naturally to me, but
yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love this team. I have so much respect for this team. I love these players, except that Mischief guy, because I super love him instead. Yeah, I mean, this is the team to beat. It's the home site team. These guys have been working so hard for this for so long. I've been watching it happen. I remember, and this might be rude, but sucks to suck. I remember in 2017 watching the Loveland team play, and I was like, man, these guys have a lot to work on. And then
we did.
Over the years, I've seen you guys work on things, and I think it definitely was a bit of a struggle. Your site didn't really have that storied leadership the way that I got to play and learn from Death Knight, who had been playing NATS forever, and so you guys came up with and developed some very interesting play styles and had a lot of kinks that weren't really worked out when I first met you. I think over the years you guys have worked a lot of that out and have developed very unique styles of play. And I think that that's going to be really hard for a lot of teams to overcome. Is some of the things you guys do might not make sense to them, but you guys are all fairly on the same page. You have an idea of what your game plan is and what your goal is, and you guys can pull off a lot. On an individual level, a lot of these players are just absolute monsters now. The Fear Turkey is a menace in his home arena. And anyone who comes in not expecting that is in for the worst surprise of their life. He's going to destroy some people. I think by all means, this team effectively has the first place slot pretty much on lock. But, going back to what I said before about how there's no real infallible teams this tournament, definitely applies here. And I've definitely seen Loveland fall off in tournaments in the past, especially at that NATS level competition. I think that there's been a lot more team tension that scales up based on the intensity of the tournament. And that intensity is maybe the biggest concern I have for this team, not even just on a mental level, but just overall, I feel like the stress of the tournament can cause a lot more mistakes to happen. So even if I'm not concerned about people like throwing games or giving up early or getting tilted, I am still concerned about panic, you know, and that's really the only danger that this team has that's really threatening them to lose that rank 1 slot. I think. Otherwise, I mean, blow for blow, I think they're beating out pretty much everyone else who's showing up.
Yeah, I think pretty much the undeniable favorites. I mean, just the facts are you guys constantly practice, constantly think about the game. You have a strong B team to play against and run scrims against. You guys have just some of the strict fastest players in the tournament in terms of sprinting and endurance. And I think you guys probably need the least communication out of every team in the arena. A lot of you guys can just naturally play the arena without calling anything, and you know what to do. And so all of those factors together are extremely, extremely intimidating. I think, though, like Luke, you're actually the linchpin of this team, in my opinion. You're the person who is the most consistent, is still at the top tier of skill, and like anytime I watch you, anytime anyone watches you, they can learn something about the game, especially in your home arena. You're doing stuff in there that on a consistent level every single game that no one else in the arena is pulling off as cleanly. You're probably like the cleanest there. And so if the team is able to not overplay their hand and not have the mental breakdowns, you're the player, in my opinion, that will never have the out of game struggles, in game struggles. And so if you had 6 Lukes, you're winning the tournament. So I'm hoping that the team will be able to kind of like lean on you if there's any of these struggles that the other 2 guys have mentioned, to kind of figure out some of these problems. And then you have people like the Fear Turkey, or even I think Jared has been stepping up recently, or watching at the Mega Members Night, Bromley was kicking butt. Like all of these players are at the top of their game. I think everyone is peaking right now. And Hawkins is so fast. Like there's so many intimidating factors. I'm sure we can go on and on about it. My main critique, kind of building off of what these guys are, is I think because of how good you guys are, there's a lot of pride there, and accepting critique can be hard from a player that is less skilled than you, and not taking blame and being able to blame other people because you might have made a minor mistake and someone else made a bigger mistake. So you could blame the whole game on the bigger mistake rather than trying to see what you individually messed up. And I think there are a couple players in this team that do that quite often. And maybe that's just outwardly, and inwardly they don't. And maybe they accept critique better from their own peers rather than from the outside. But if you guys are able to critique each other and work together and adapt to whatever new playstyles are brought in from all the traveling teams, I don't think this team could be beaten. So there's just a few cracks that everyone's going to be aiming for. You guys have to guard those, and we'll see how it goes.
Luke is the person I'm most excited to play against.
Agreed.
I want to shoot Luke so much.
I wish I could play with you. Fun to play with.
That would be nice.
Thank you all for the kind words and the honest warnings. Things that we need to look out for. I love this team. These guys are my actual brothers. One of the things I did early on was I didn't read the whole thing. I really wish I did and still can, but I read part of a book called Mentor Leadership by Tony Dungy. He coached the Indianapolis Colts during a year they won the Super Bowl. They had a really good run for a while. A man I just kind of respect, and introduced the concept to me that he wasn't about trying to necessarily build the strongest team and win the tournament. He was trying to turn every person on his team into a better man. We have taken a lot of intentionality to hang out outside of tag and bond as friends, so that when times come like that where we're panicking or we're angry at each other, we actually care about each other so much that we'll naturally be able to overcome that easier. The way that families can get angry and stay bonded, stay connected. We have overcome so much struggle with taking this too seriously, too life or death, ruining the game for ourselves because we're like, this is our one shot. If we don't win, it's you can think of all kinds of catastrophic instances, but I mean, we've really worked on that. Like if you can overcome the stakes and have fun when you're playing, you're much less likely to freak out, yell, hit a wall, do something stupid in a game if the point is that you're playing with your brothers and you love the game, not you know, like with the stakes hanging over you, which I'll admit, they've been scary. Like, hey, we have well, my plus for our team, we have an unfair amount of practice. That's the #1 headline. If you take us in a neutral arena that we've never played at before, the rankings change, but we do get an unfair home field advantage. And we are unashamedly taking drastic use of that. If we don't win this tournament, the team that does beat us has proven that they are legit the best players in the United States, period. Coming into an away arena against our team, it will take a lot to figure us out and do that, and you'll have my respect. I mean, I already respect the teams coming in. We're shooting for first. Yeah, it's kind of now or never for a lot of us. Being not that we're all gonna like stop playing, period, but I think different life events are gonna slowly carry some of us away from competing constantly. So we do see this team as a team that may never really like get back together in the future. We wanna take advantage of that. A couple other So we have an unfair amount of practice. We're hungry, and that's a factor. Not every team at this tournament is super hungry. And one thing we've done, I just want to call it out, that over the last 3 years or so, basically ever since like COVID, we lost like most of our A team. We have been really intentional at trying to get Simply Okay, Brahmatized, and Ghost to play in tournaments and leave the home site, because we knew that they were going to be players that would very likely be on our A team in the future. And we were trying to bide our time for this tournament. That's why we didn't do a full A team roster in West Coast 22. We're like, I'd rather Jarrett play Commander on the Bakery. I'd rather like me and John and Bromley have to really carry the load and learn without Josiah here and force ourselves to become better so that in the future we can have the advantages we need.
Yeah.
I see two main weaknesses. Aiden, you kind of alluded to it. We never had like a dedicated mentor figure. Eve's Thunder was kind of like the first one to come out and show us SM5. In Sewercuse 2016, he was instrumental in teaching us the basics. And Tragedy taught me some things in 2017. I can name a bunch of people. We had to kind of like pick from all these people and be our own mentors. Trying to give that to our B team now. But we still don't have that. At the end of the day, there are still things I'm thinking that Thunder, Death Knight, and Than have in their back pocket we just haven't seen yet, you know? And I really don't take stock in this one, but the truth is that we've fallen short of projections pretty much every tournament we've been to. I am very wary of hubris. I really try to snuff it out of my teammates. The idea that, oh, we're gonna win. No, you're not. You take every team seriously and don't take anything for granted. So, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, that's great. When I go to NATS, what I'm looking for, obviously winning is great. Obviously, I go into every NATS with the intention to win. Every single one. It doesn't matter how weak my team is. But what I'm looking for is really, really good, strong, competitive games. And a lot of times that means rising to the occasion, but it also means treating every other team as an equal. And I think that that's a very important thing for your mentality. I think that if that is your goal, and I think if you're approaching every game seriously with the intent to rise to the occasion and treat every team like a challenge, I think that that is where you will draw out your best gameplay. I think that mentality is very important. I've seen players who are phenomenal players play very poorly because they didn't have the right mentality going into the tournament. They weren't taking certain teams seriously. They weren't trying to rise up to the occasion. They were just trying to play their game. And so I've seen Loveland play so seriously. I've seen Loveland try and really step up consistently. And I'm really hoping to see that mentality from them this year. Definitely, I've mostly seen them in members nights recently because I keep going out there. And I've seen some play where I'm like, that's a little disappointing. But at the end of the day, that's members night. And, we keep talking about how it's a different environment than NATS. And so I really hope to see a lot of seriousness coming out of all those players at NATS. And I really think that if you guys come out and you guys really want it, and every player on that team is taking every other team seriously and doing their best to rise up to the occasion and fulfill the roles that the team needs of them, I think that this is going to be one of the best US teams ever seen, and in a home field, borderline unbeatable.
So last year, before the Auckland Nats fan said on the Resupply podcast that Josiah has a bunch of mental struggles and he's going to freak out and everything's going to go terrible because of that. And then that didn't happen at all in the tournament, and Josiah kicked butt. And I feel like we're falling a bit into the Than train of we're critiquing the mental of this team so much, and then we're going to go into this tournament and everyone's going to be polished, because at this last Mega Members Night, a lot of my concerns I had for this team were snuffed out, which is unfortunate because that's what I was hoping to exploit, and they weren't there to exploit. A lot of the players were really chill. They were having a good time. They were coming out of the game, and if they were a little bit upset, they figured it out. They got over it. No one's flaming. So all the stuff that you're talking about, Luke, that you guys have worked on and focused on, I think it's like, at least from an outside perspective, extremely noticeable about how the team has improved in that aspect. So we may have egg on our face in a month or so.
Yeah. Well, this is, the point here is honesty and transparency, right? I'm not saying you guys suck, your mental sucks. I'm saying that these would be the leading concerns, and I am very hopeful that you guys are addressing them, and I have a lot of faith in your ability to do so. And if you didn't, then egg on your face. But I'm willing to take the egg for the greater good. At the end of the day, I want all of these teams to thrive. I want all the players showing up to improve, and I want a more difficult tournament year after year. I want everyone to keep rising to the occasion and to see everything improve. So, putting it all out there, everyone showing up has strengths. It's a matter of what you can play into and how well you can adapt and how well you can adjust to your weaknesses. So I'm very excited to see everyone. I think it's going to be a great tournament.
To wrap this
We'll
up,
spotlight Joe for a second.
Oh, spotlight Joe. Yes, please.
Oh, sorry.
He deserves a spotlight.
Yeah, just a quick note on Joe. I feel like we haven't talked about him much at all, but he's a player that I think I undervalue significantly in the game, because I wouldn't say he's a very flashy player in the game. He's not as fast as Calkins is, or making the insane dips that Josiah is, but I think his consistency really raises this team's level significantly. He's in the right space at the right time. He's trying to do his best he can with all the call outs and the communications, keeping everyone's head in the right place in the game. I think he's a really consistent factor that, what do you call it, the glue man. He's keeping the team in the moment in the game, and so I want to give him a little shout out there.
Building on that, actually, Joe has a skill that I think really is only maybe matched by one other person at this tournament, and that's timing. There's almost no other ammos that I'm more annoyed playing against than Joe in that arena. He knows how to play the ramps, and he knows when to pressure the midfield. He knows when to switch fully to resupply focus. He knows when he needs to do what he needs to do. And the only other player showing up that I've really felt that same way about is Meds. I feel like Meds is really good at that time. He's really good at knowing when he can pop out, when he can take shots, when he needs to reset the heavy, when he needs to support the field, which is a great value that both of them provide. But for Joe, for Sergeant Tucker, it's elevated a little more with his level of arena experience, because not only does he know when he can do these things, he knows where the best place to do them from is. So watching him pivot to the ramp on ammo at certain key times when he knows that his team has big box and has Baja, and he knows that he has the wiggle room to push out more, and when he knows to get back into Fortress, when he knows to dip into Closet versus into Trench, when to start getting ready for these backtracks, knowing how to move around the arena combined with his sense of timing makes him very formidable in resupply in ways that you don't normally anticipate a resupply to be. And almost entirely due to that, it raises an additional threat from this team that you aren't going to feel from most of the other teams. Having to be concerned about the team in front of you and their resupply creates a lot of pressure, and it can be very difficult if you aren't getting the same kind of support.
All right. And hey, before we wrap up, Snuffles, I'm glad that you had a chance to clear the air about the Loveland So Easy thing. I will thank you in a way. It did provide a great opportunity for us to try to teach our players, like, hey, just because something is unjust in the world, someone says something that might be perceived as mean, or you get an unfair penalty, doesn't mean that getting angry is the right way to respond to that. You've helped teach us a little bit of self-control, I think. And I'm glad you're able to clear the air.
Yeah. Full disclosure, I'm going to keep saying Loveland So Easy until you guys prove me wrong. And I want you guys to prove me wrong. So that's, my challenge to you guys.
Yeah, dude, I wasn't even going to say anything. It's just if you don't beat us, it's going to be kind of embarrassing for you. I was like, okay, man,
if you
better live it up to the hype.
If you guys beat us, I'm going to say Cedar City So Easy. Boom. There we go.
It feels like a matter of poking the bear and hoping it falls over rather than swipes at you.
Right, yeah.
That's what makes it fun.
All right, let's move on to our Rookie of the Year predictions to wrap up our show. And I want to thank you all for coming on this far. It's been a really fun discussion. So let's wrap it up by just highlighting some people that we believe will be good. I don't actually have your rookies here, so I'm just going to start with mine, and then let's go one at a time. I'm going straight biased. I'm going with my son, Ghost Jarrett, as my prediction for Rookie of the Year. Ghost has been playing since he was about 12 at our site. He's the only rookie on the Loveland Phoenix. He has worked his butt off. He's been a complete team player, a cheerleader for us, and he's actively innovating his roles. We're all very proud of him, and I think he can win this award because there will be games, I predict, where it doesn't look like our team does much of anything, and Ghost alone shows that he's enough to take out a team. He's a very talented player. I don't think it's going to be getting carried by his team that'll get him this award. I think he'll completely earn it on his own.
Yeah, he's super good.
Yeah, he's a very good player. If I can get into my prediction for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, go ahead, Aiden.
I think that by merit, the Rookie of the Year is Jarrett. I think making it onto the A team for your debut Nats is very impressive, and I think he earned that spot on the team. But my prediction for Rookie of the Year is actually going to be Strikva, as far as my prediction for who will win it. And that's because Strikva is a very impressive player, and I think he's going to shine more. I think he brings so much value to his team, and he adapts so well that it's not a matter of playing for yourself and flexing your own points or anything. I think it's just a matter of I think Jarrett will do his job, and he has a role on that team. and I think he'll play very consistently, and he'll have some strong games. But I really feel like Strikva has the ability to just flip odds on their head. I think he has the ability to go into a game and people will be like, "Oh yeah, there's no way Loveland B can beat, you know, Snuffles Commander or Snuffles Heavy." And then all of a sudden, Strikva goes in and just pulls some crazy play out of thin air, maneuvers so well. He's really good at playing around his team and understanding where his teammates are and where his support is, that he's able to snowball those leads that he generates from his successful plays and convert them into wins. And I think that that is going to be so powerful for them. And I think it's going to be something that people see a lot of throughout the tournament. So that's my prediction.
I think the two obvious ones are Ghost and Strikva. But for me, I also had Strikva is my pick. Purely because I agree with basically everything Aiden said. I think because he's on the B team, he has more of a chance to shine versus the A team. Because Ghost, as good as he is, he's going to be surrounded by people who are just as good, if not better than him. Whereas Strikva, I do think, is probably the best player on the Loveland B team. And so that'll give him the chance to shine. As well as, from what I understand, he is most likely locked into playing Commander, possibly Heavy. Whereas with Ghost, I'm not sure if he's playing Commander or Scout or a mix of both. So I think that could also sway it depending on what Ghost plays.
Just to mention Strikva real quick, that's not my pick, but when we were at the Mega Members Night, I found myself calling his name out the most of like, stop shooting me. Because he was just coming up the ramps, downstairs, leaning over the walls. Like, he's just everywhere in the arena. This dude runs everywhere.
He's a hungry player. He's always looking for something. And even in the most dire situations, he's looking for, what can I do? Where can I go? How can I do something?
That being said, my pick is Azra. I think the in-game progress she's made is like vast. Every single time we go see or play, or she travels and plays with us somewhere, the leaps of improvement have been just absolutely massive. And even just reffing their games, you can hear the in-game command that she has over the arena, but also watch the like influence that she has, especially on third. I think with her little like crouch walk or the movements around like chamber and stuff like that, I think it's really impressive to watch. And for a player that's come so far so fast, the like Ghost and Strikva shine a lot in the 3-hit roles and the scout roles, being really forward, really frontline, where I think Azra can shine in all roles. She's probably my favorite Loveland player to play resupply with, just due to like, I don't have to say anything. They just know what they're doing at all times. So that is like pretty much a perfect player that I always want to have on my team.
I'm loving that pick. I like Strikva, absolutely. I agree that he will have chances to shine above a lot of other players, and a lot of people really like Finale as a team, so they're going to be cheering for him to do those board flips. But I would love to see Azra win Rookie of the Year. I want to say you all should see the work that she's putting in behind the scenes, the extensive team meetings that she's leading, the one-on-one talks she has with all of her players, the notes she takes, the adjustments that she tries to make. I mean, she is working with all rookies, and it's a situation where synergy isn't supernatural for a lot of these players. I mean, the Three Musketeers, Judah, Strikva, and Azra, they all work really well together inherently, but Azra's really had to build this from the ground up as a rookie herself. I'm very proud of her, and I would love for that to be recognized over what will probably most likely be recognized, which is like someone going off as a 3-hit, which is still a really important part of the game. It's very impressive, but she deserves a lot of credit.
Yeah. She also is very well practiced in an almost lost art in resupply, which is shielding the medic. I feel like in recent tournaments, I would say it might be a little lazy, but there's a lot less shielding the medic. A lot of teams will keep the medic up to try and have them help defend themselves. Azra has been practicing a lot of putting the medic down to get them to safety rather than rolling the dice. And that actually contributes to the team a lot. They have a tendency to draw games out for a while, and sometimes that's able to make the difference in a match. If you're able to draw a game out and really thrive in a losing circumstance, to really narrow that gap that you have to overcome. So very interested to see the performance, especially in the backline. And I think there's definitely a lot of players on that team to be very impressed with. They play very well for rookies, and they are all picking up a lot of skills and techniques and ideas that are going to help the team a lot throughout the tournament.
Okay. Any final thoughts before we conclude this, heading into NATS this year? Maybe it'd be good to go over,
just so excited.
Just to quickly recap the final consensus rankings. Coming in at number 8, we got St. George Sunbeams. Detroit, number 7. Detroit Motor City Mutts. Five Nights at Loveland at number 6. LA Phaser Department, number 5. Sewercuse at number 4. Cedar City Sentinels, number 3. California Inner Peace at number 2. And Loveland Phoenix at 1.
I will say I'm slightly disappointed because the consensus predictions are what I expected them to be, like exactly. But there was some good spicy stuff in there. The tie between LAPD and Syracuse was like a fun, like little surprise. I was not expecting that, but
yeah, I'm so excited for this NATS. And if you're watching this, and you're upset about where you were placed, it's fuel. It's use that. That's something to overcome. The greatest part about NATS is the upsets. The matches where you go, oh wow, they're really doing it. They're pulling through. The New Zealand team last year had technically an upset in finals that brought them up and had them place. Very impressive, and at the end of the day, that's all it comes down to is being able to pull through when it counts. So good luck to everyone going. I'm excited to see everyone. I'm excited to play against everyone, and let's have some really good games.
When you said that, Nolan and I got the most curmudgeon-y faces.
I saw.
Indeed.
And remember, sometimes all it takes is one ammo.
All right.
True.
We're going to wrap it up there on those wise words. Thanks,
Just
everyone,
make sure
for
you
watching. Make sure we what? It's important. Make sure we what? Can't leave us in suspense, Odin's Fist.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Make sure you pie an enemy player and trip them, and then tag them 70 times while they're on the ground to win the game. That's all it takes.
That's our weakness.
Just drop a pencil here and there.
Yeah.
I'm bringing my pencil case.
That's how we beat Loveland, eh?
Well, LAPD with Connor, they're weak against pencils. We're weak against pies to the face and getting knocked onto the ground. Yeah. There you go.
Cody's weak to brownies and milkshakes.
All right, we're shutting it down. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Thank you guys for coming on. And we'll see you at NATS in a little less than a month. Best of luck to all your teams.
See you then.
See ya.